Something you might not know about me is that I love my job. Maybe you resonate with that statement, and actually your work brings you to a workshop like I'm standing in right now. This might be a familiar environment for you. And like me, it's because what you love to do, your passions and the skill sets that you have learned intersect with what you get to do. Historically, we're living in a moment where we have that option. We just don't have to work to make a living, but we can pursue a career that lines up with our passions and what we like to do. Although that is a blessing, there's often a shadow side we don't recognize sometimes until it's too late. I say that because I came head to head with that shadow side at the start of 2017. I was working as a youth and young adult pastor on the West Coast at a great church, experiencing tremendous growth. I was doing well in youth ministry. The youth ministry was growing. The young adults ministry was growing. We were reaching new people. And I thought I was just about to have an awesome year. That January, I came into it just turning 30, getting back from a great vacation with my wife with no kids. But that January, I was met with two unforeseen things. First, I had an unexpected hard conversation with my boss, who came into my office one evening and told me that I wasn't meeting his expectations. I wasn't producing enough, or I wasn't performing up to the organization's standards. That led me to the next week sitting down with my direct supervisor, who in that meeting handed me a list of 10 things I needed to accomplish at the end of a 6-month period in order to improve my performance. At the same time, a couple weeks later, my body felt off. Physically, I knew something was happening, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly what was going on. And one night, out of nowhere, I was sitting down with my family, having dinner, the normal, trying to control the chaos of the 3 kids, grabbing at stuff, knocking stuff over, when all of a sudden I felt short of breath. I also felt a tightening of my body, particularly on my left side. My wife thought I was having a stroke or something like that. I right away thought I was having a heart attack because heart disease runs in my family. So knowing that my wife couldn't pack up the kids and take me to the hospital, we called the ambulance. It ended being an uneventful night where I just got driven to the hospital. They did some tests on me to find out that really what I experienced was a panic attack, something that I've never experienced in my life till that moment. I booked an appointment, a follow-up appointment with my family doctor. And as I went into that checkup, I knew okay, something is just not right. He did some tests, found out that first and foremost, what was concerning was my blood pressure was pretty high. And there was a bunch of other systems that pointed to me being under extreme stress, is the way that he put it. And I'll never forget the question that he asked me. He's like, hey, do you have any hobbies? It'd be a great time to engage in one of those hobbies right now. You just need to de-stress. My mind was just racing because not only did I not have any hobbies, but in that moment I realized I was overworking to this point of exhaustion and extreme stress. But at the same time, on that drive home, in my mind, that list was just staring me right in my face. I was asking myself, how am I supposed to slow down right now when my job might be on the line? Have you ever been there? Overworked, overwhelmed, staring at work ahead of you with no idea how to handle it. Feeling you're at the end of yourself while looking at a task list that appears to be insurmountable. Angry, anxious, and just tired. Overwork is the shadow side of the blessing of a job you love, and it's easy to slip into. In our culture right now, technology is both a blessing and a curse, right? It adds up to this problem of overworking. Although technology has made some of our work easier and more efficient, The biggest downside is that it's made it harder for us to stop working, right? To unplug. Because checking work email or Slack is just a touch away on our phone. A phone that we usually carry everywhere we go. Pile on the pandemic on top of that, and there's multiple podcast episodes and news articles right now talking about the high rates of burnout. Because it's hard to separate work from life when you're working from home. But what really caught my attention this week was this news headline on Monday that started off and read like this: "Working to Death" was the start of the title. The article, an excerpt from it, reads like this. It talked about a new study that is suggesting that constant connection is more dangerous than we even know, than we think. Experts say that we need to pay more attention to it. The study says long work hours are killing hundreds of thousands of people a year. According to the World Health Organization, the first of its kind global study found that 745,000 people died from a stroke and heart disease associated with long working hours in 2016. An increase, get this, of nearly 30% from 2000. That's 2016. I wonder what the number has grown to now in 2021. At the end of this article, the experts say this is the solution. This is the antidote. The antidote is unplugging. But what if the antidote isn't just unplugging? You know this. I've experienced this myself. Do you think just unplugging for a vacation or a day or a week off really is enough, right? As I told you earlier, in 2017, I was coming off a vacation and I still experienced severe anxiety. Like, have you ever gone on vacation, especially with kids, and come back from that vacation to just think like, I need a vacation from that vacation? And you come back not only thinking you need another vacation, but you're just tired and you just plug right back into that cycle of fatigue and overwhelm. Well, today I want to give you what I believe is the antidote to overworking and underworking, the antidote to the feelings of stress, fatigue, exhaustion you might be feeling in this season, right in this moment. Again, I want to go back to the book of Genesis, as we did in part 2 of this series. And if you missed it, I encourage you to go back, listen to that talk before, because as we talk about this topic today, what I believe is that talk plus this talk coupled together are two sides of the same coin that we know as work. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 2, verse 1 today. But if you don't know, Genesis is the first book of the Bible. It's the story of how God created everything, including work, like we found out last time. As we come to chapter 2 of Genesis, we're entering the story the day after God created human beings. His final act of creation. After creating everything else, this is the conclusion of the 6 days. God does something very, very interesting. Let's find out together. Genesis 2:1 reads like this. Thus, the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the 7th day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the 7th day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. The creation story starts with God working and ends with God resting. After 6 days, get this, of making the world, the universe, it's done. It's complete. And you think you had a productive week. Then we read, God rested. It's easy to skip that, right? But I want you to catch this. God rested. The author of Genesis thinks it's so important that we get this, that he actually mentions it twice in the passage that we just read. In the original language, rested can be translated to stop or cease. God ceased working. When I first read that, I was like, what? Why does God have to rest, right? Like, he is God. No other being in the universe can compare to him. He is an endless source of energy that is so powerful that this energy that was expelled by the words of his mouth created the universe. He spoke it into existence. God doesn't need sleep or vacation like us finite humans. Finite meaning that humans live within physical limits of time and space and bodily limits of strength and energy. We're not like God. God is infinite. He doesn't get tired or exhausted to the point that, he has to go home and just collapse on the couch to watch his favorite episode of The Office while passing out 5 minutes after the start of the show. So why did God rest? Simply, first, he is modeling for us how we need to function when it comes to work and rest. As we established last time in Genesis 1:27, it says that God made us in his image, which simply means we reflect who he is and what he does to the world around us. So simply, we work because God works. And we understand now that work is not a curse, but a blessing that is found in paradise. Not only that, we see God working, but in the same way, we rest because God rests. John Mark Comer, an author and pastor in Portland, Oregon, puts it like this in his book, Garden City, when he's explaining the dynamic and relationship between work and rest. He writes, "Work and rest live in a symbiotic relationship. If you don't learn how to rest well, you will never learn how to work well, and vice versa. After all, the opposite of work isn't rest, it's sleep. Work and rest are friends, not enemies. They come together to make a full, well-rounded life." See, work and rest, it's this pattern that God embedded into the way we were created to live this life. There's intelligent design at work here. It's a rhythm of work and rest that come together to create a beautiful, full life. When you think about this word, rhythm, I want you to think a drum player in a band, right? The drums in a band, in a piece of music, it sets the beat that when the other instruments in the band play to it, it makes a beautiful piece of music. But when the other instruments play offbeat, what happens? The music is anything but beautiful. It's a mess. It's out of sync. It's chaos, you can say. In the same way, God created the rhythm to this life. So when we sync ourselves to this pattern of work and rest, work and rest, work and rest, it leads us to a beautiful, full life. Right now, some of you might be thinking, Ben, I get this. This isn't rocket science. This isn't new stuff like work and rest. Yep, got it. Ben, I work 5 days, then it's the weekend. I live for the weekend, so much so that I have the lyrics to Rihanna's weekend anthem, Cheers, tattooed to my body somewhere. In ancient Jewish culture, their understanding of a day off is totally different. And in Jewish culture nowadays, still practiced in places like Israel or in other Jewish communities around the world, this day is known as Sabbath, a day of rest. Right, our culture right now lives with this mindset when it comes to this day of rest, that especially in the West, that we work 5 days to earn the right to rest and play on the weekend. But this Sabbath day is different. Why? Because keeping the Sabbath is more than just taking a day off. It's about ordering your life around this pattern of 6 days of work and 1 day of rest. And this is what I want you to get today. The goal of Sabbath is ordering your life around being more than doing. I'm going to say that again. The goal of Sabbath is ordering your life more around being more than doing. Because the weekend comes around, and let's be honest, if you're anything like me, you get caught up in this cycle of doing. Right now, you probably have a list of things that you need to get done around the house, cleaning, renos, or extracurricular activities that you need to take your kids to, or grocery shopping, or shopping just for leisure. The list can go on and on and on. And plus, for some of you who, like me, love your job, you don't mind putting in some extra hours to get ahead on that project or finish that blog post or that report that you need to present next week. Or maybe for some of you, it's doing that last home showing. That isn't Sabbath rest. Why? Because you're still doing tasks for the purpose of accomplishing and producing. Sabbath rest is this 24-hour period where you don't do any work for your employer or you don't do any work. And some of us know this. Physically, it's obvious when we come off a weekend like that, we are exhausted mentally, physically, even emotionally at times. That's why they call it the Monday blues. This is breaking the design of how we humans were created to function. Again, the word rested in Genesis 2 in Hebrew is pronounced Shabbat. It's where we get the English word Sabbath from. And again, it essentially means to stop, but it can also be translated to celebrate. So simply to practice Sabbath is choosing a day, a 24-hour period to cease from work. To cease from work on the Sabbath means to quit laboring at anything that is work. We don't do any tasks for the purpose of accomplishing and producing. And so I want you to get this, right? It's 6 days of work, 1 day of rest. So that means that, yeah, sure, maybe 1 day in the weekend, you can get those list of tasks done, but for a 24-hour period, you don't do anything. And this is what the understanding I want to lead you to. Sabbath rest does not limit you. It frees you. I'm going to say that again. Sabbath rest doesn't limit you. It frees you. Some of you need to hear this and get this because right now what I'm describing to you is like, Ben, like, what are you doing? You're telling me what I can't do on my weekend? Like, that is super limiting. It's like, it feels like you're putting a straitjacket on me right now. Listen, understanding and practicing true Sabbath rest is what I believe to be the antidote to this epidemic of burnout. And I want you to really dig in and get this because for some of you right now, it is crucial that you get this. Because right now, if you know it or not, some of you might be on the edge of having a breakdown of sorts. I know this because over the last couple of years, the last 4 years actually, I've done the hard work of digging down deep into what my work means to me. And what I found is that there's more to my work than just me loving to do a job. I actually have realized that what I love to do gives me a sense of identity. And a lot of us, we love to work because our job gives us identity. Our job allows us to cling to some sense that we're indispensable, that the world couldn't go on without us, even for a day. And you might not agree with me right now, but talk to someone that has lost their job. Sit with them. Ask them, what are they feeling in this moment? Back in 2019, I had a crisis of identity because I resigned from my role as a pastor in a church in BC. And yes, I didn't quit my job, but I resigned believing that God was calling me to pursue doing church work out here in Toronto. And even though I didn't lose my job, what happened in that season, in those months when I didn't know what was next, when I didn't have any work to do, feelings started coming to the surface of who I was. Feelings where I would ask myself, like, what am I doing with my life? And as I was looking for doors that might be opening up to me, what happened was that I really started struggling with who I was. And I realized during that season how much my identity was formed and built into and attached to what I did, being a pastor. I didn't think it was that case, but it was eye-opening because I started to realize how much I got my value as a human being from how much I produced, how effective and efficient I was at my job. And that's a lot of us. A lot of us, if we dig down deep, find our value as a human being from what we produce. There was a Toronto Star article this past week about burnout in the pandemic that I read in preparation for this talk. And what caught my attention in this interview with this guy named Kyle Ashley, he was a parking enforcement officer and a cycling enthusiast that they interviewed so many times in the Toronto Star, and they caught up with him to talk about work life in the pandemic and how he feels when he stops working. And it was this line that caught my attention. When responding to like how he feels when he stopped working, he said this: "I don't even feel like I exist outside my production anymore." We get our identity and value from what we produce. And this is where the beauty of the Sabbath comes in. Sabbath rest does not limit you, it frees you. It frees you from the need to produce. It frees you from a false identity that you are your work. And I want you to listen. I need some of you to hear me today. You are more than just your work. You're more than email. You're more than making the sale. You're more than helping a patient or a student. You're more than your shift. You're more than building, cleaning, or caring for something or someone. As writer Ruth Haley Barton puts it when writing about the Sabbath, she writes this: "There is freedom that comes from being who we are in God and resting in God that eventually enables us to bring something truer to the world than all our doing. We touch something more real in ourselves and others than what any of us is able to produce. We touch our very being in God." At the heart of practicing Sabbath rest is this idea that we take time to rest and delight in God, our Creator, something more meaningful and life-giving than doing. It's not just about disconnecting or unplugging from our work, but it's about connecting to the God of the universe, the source of life. So right now you're thinking, okay, Ben, so what am I supposed to do? It's not about accomplishing, but about being and enjoying God on a Sabbath day. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I have maybe 4 kids at home, or I'm a nurse, or I'm a shift worker, and I don't really have this rhythm, or I don't have the weekends off. Like, how am I supposed to practice Sabbath? Am I supposed to just sit and meditate? I actually like to be active. Well, here's the great thing about the Sabbath, is that the Sabbath is where you can express your own uniqueness as you try to connect with God. When it comes to Sabbath, there are no rules. You can Sabbath on the day that works best for you and in the way that works best for you. Because Sabbath isn't about rules. It's actually more about a relationship. And I'll explain more about what I mean when I say relationship in a second. But let me get real practical. Your Sabbath might not look like my Sabbath. It might not look like your friend's Sabbath. Because we all are made differently. We all are wired uniquely when it comes to how we connect to God. Some people I know connect with God by taking a hike or a walk in nature. I connect with God by listening to worship music. Some people, their go-to is spending extra moments on their day off in prayer throughout their day and carving out more time to communicate with God through prayer. For some of you, it might be connecting with friends or family over a meal, both digitally or physically. But for some of you, the most spiritual thing you can do on the Sabbath is this: take a nap. Take a nap. It's that simple. I remember a friend of mine telling me a story about how one day she wanted to just pray more on her day off. And she just wanted to spend a solid amount of time just praying because she was a mom and never really got moments by herself. And so this time her husband took the kids, and so she really wanted to just pray. So she found a comfortable place in the house. She sat down, and as she started to pray, she slowly fell asleep. Waking up, who knows when, she just felt guilty because she knew she was trying to pray. But in that moment, as guilt crept in, she felt God gave her this overwhelming sense of peace, accompanied by this affirmation that a nap was exactly what she needed and exactly what He wanted for her. Connecting to God is crucial to tap into the rhythm of power the Sabbath has to re-energize you. On the Sabbath, we rest with him and we rest in him. Practicing Sabbath is an expression of faith that he is God and we are not, that he is in control. He has the power to bless our lives and our work if we live according to his purposes. And here's what I know to be true. The blessing of Sabbath, when observed, pours over into all areas of your life, including your work. Go back to 2017 and that list, right? What happened? You might be asking. What happened is, well, I started to rest. I started to understand and dig into during that time ways to become less anxious, to deal with my anxiety. And what I found was I needed to enter into this rhythm of work and rest. And I found Sabbath rest. And so what I tried to do, my best, was order my life around this rhythm. I started connecting to God through the spiritual disciplines of silence and solitude every morning. And every morning for 6 months, I took that list from my boss, I put it on the ground, I kneeled down, and I just prayed over that list. I gave it to God. And slowly, as those 6 months went by, I felt this deep peace just grow and grow and grow and grow. And at the end of the 6 months, I wasn't just feeling more peaceful. I was surprised by promotion. By choosing a rhythm of Sabbath, of being and not just producing, I was able to have peace and accomplishment. In this creation story in Genesis, there are only 3 things that God blesses: the living creatures, humans, and as we just read, the Sabbath, the day of rest. Blessing, this word, to understand it, is this life-giving ability to procreate, to make more life. This is obvious when you take the word blessing and apply it to living creatures and humans. But to understand that the Sabbath is blessed is to understand God gave it a life-giving ability to fill humans, when they practice this, up with this life energy. And this is why I tell you this, because this is more than just a theory. Will you all get promotions? No, probably not if you start Sabbathing. But for me, God was teaching me there's a way to work in your own power and there's a way to work in mine. And for some of you right now in this moment, everything that you're feeling at work in the midst of a pandemic, that overdrive, overwhelm, overworking feeling, is not an invitation to quit, but an invitation to rest. To Sabbath as an expression of faith in God, you first have to do this. You first have to surrender your whole life to Jesus, to repent of your sins and turn to him. And this is what I mean, because as I said earlier, Sabbath isn't about rules, but a relationship, specifically a relationship with God. And what happened in Genesis 3, the chapter after this, sin entered the world and disconnected us from that relationship with God. But God didn't want to leave things that way. He wanted to redeem that relationship. So God made a way to enjoy that relationship once again with him by sending his son to live a perfect life on this earth, to die on the cross for your sins and my sins, the sins of the world. And after he died on the cross, he was buried in a grave. He rested in a grave. Do you get that? Even embedded in the good news of the gospel is this pattern of rest that shows us, even when the world thought God was down and out for the count, he was cooking up something that the world did not expect. And that was evidence of the life-giving power of God in action when Jesus rose from the dead on the 3rd day, conquering death and sin and making a way for you and me to connect back to God when we give our life to him. And when you believe this, by grace, through faith, you enter into a relationship with God. To truly experience this deep, eternal rest, you need to be in a relationship with God. This is the first step you need to take. But for the rest of us that call ourselves follower of Jesus, this is what I want you to do this week. This is the first thing you can do. Sit down, grab a calendar, and pick a day that works best for you to Sabbath. Why do you need to pick a day? Well, you need to pick a day so you can get into this rhythm of work and rest. And it needs to be the same day in order for you to be in this rhythm. And now, to give you some examples, to give you some ideas, use your creativity, just a little bit about how me and my family Sabbath. We Sabbath every week from Friday at 3 o'clock to Saturday at 3 o'clock. Why that 24-hour block of time? Because that 24-hour block of time works best for us. And so what do I end up doing? Well, my wife usually on Friday ends up going grocery shopping and buying all the food that we need for that Friday dinner and the week ahead and the weekend. And what happens at 3 p.m., usually after my kids are done, they play outside after they're done school. And then they come in and we eat one of our favorite meals. Most of the time at our house, it's sushi. But we eat our favorite meals, we laugh, and with 4 kids, it's not perfect. Don't get me wrong, it's chaotic at times. As I said earlier, things are spilt. Not everybody finishes their food, but we just try to enjoy that meal together. And what we do after that is we might play some board games, or we have family movie night, which includes popcorn, a bunch of candy. And what my kids look forward to the most on that Friday is that Friday, out of all the other days of the week, they get to stay up late. And so they get to stay up late, they get to do whatever they want. And sometimes after they go to bed, me and my wife enjoy a glass of wine. Because remember, Sabbath is also about celebrating. It's about feasting in God's goodness. And Saturday morning, we sleep in. And another thing that we do every Saturday is have a breakfast, maybe some pancakes or something special like that. And we just slow down and enjoy time together. Sometimes it includes me playing basketball with my kids. And another thing that me and my wife do that I like to call tag team napping is that we each take a nap. And with 4 kids, we both can't take a nap at the same time. So I usually go for a nap, and it's usually a 20-minute short, quick nap. And then my wife goes for a nap while I watch the kids. But I say this to you because even if it's not perfect, even if we miss it, even if we don't do everything in the order that I planned, every Saturday around 3 or just after 3, I can't explain it to you, but I always come into this sense of peace. This moment that tangibly I don't know what just happened, but I feel this deep sense of peace. And this is the invitation to all of you today. Listen to this invitation from Jesus. I leave you with his words found in Matthew 11. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me and watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly.